And the Supreme Court on Thursday struck down on race now being a criteria as far as college admissions are concerned, declaring that race cannot be a factor and forcing institutions of higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies.
And Divya, this comes as a major blow to this decades-old practice that boosted educational opportunities for African Americans and other minorities, including Indian Americans as well. The court's conservative majority overturned admissions plans at Harvard and University of North Carolina, which are the nation's oldest private and public colleges as well. Now, what is the reason for this? The Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in the majority opinion that while affirmative action was quote-unquote well-intended and implemented in good faith, it cannot last forever and it amounted to unconstitutional discrimination against others. He said that the student must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual and not on the basis of race.
Well, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, the current presidential frontrunner, has taken to social media in order to talk about this landmark decision which has taken place, calling it a great day for America. Now, people with extraordinary ability and everything else necessary for success, including a future greatness for our country, are finally being rewarded, is what Donald Trump said. However, well, Barack Obama, as well as Joe Biden, do not agree with, what Trump is, in fact, saying, and also this landmark ruling.
Absolutely. The current Biden administration is against this, and President Joe Biden said that we are strongly against this ruling from the Supreme Court. Now, to get an understanding and a perspective on the Supreme Court order that is truly landmark, we have Asma Nomani joining us, who's an American author and a former Georgetown University professor. We also have Suparna Datta, who's the co-founder, Coalition for TJ, and the Director of Education platform at American Hindu Coalition. Thanks very much, Suparna, for joining us. And my first question to you, that as we've just seen that President Joe Biden and even former President Barack Obama, they put out their reactions saying that this will majorly impact the representation of minorities in US universities. What is your take on that?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Well, it's surprising and at the same time not very surprising. You know, immigrants like me have made America their home because they come here recognizing America as a land of meritocracy, which rewards hard work, merit and grit and dedication. And so to come here and find out that there is affirmative action is a setback, because, you know, if you're to uphold the Constitution of the United States, it has to be equal treatment under the law, but equal protection. And as the co-founder of Coalition for TJ, I can tell you over the last 3 years in our journey to get justice and equal opportunity in education for K through 12, which is in school age kids, what we have found is that while we've reached across the aisles the last 3 years to talk to leaders from both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, we have only got a fair hearing from one side of the aisle, the Republicans. It seems to be that the Republicans understand that merit and grit and hard work is not only good because it's fair to the child, but it's also good for America because it puts the applicants or the students who are able to cope with rigorous and challenging work, good for national security of the country.
Right. Suparna, not every college or university in the United States was using a race as a criterion for admission. Some states, including California, Michigan, as well as Florida, so 9 states in all, would already banned this ruling earlier on as well.
It's very interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because while they were not checking the boxes on the race, but there are much more insidious so-called race-neutral ways where you could use zip codes or you could use other ways, to give a leg up to some applicants versus others. So yes, this is just the first battle. It's not the last battle that we fought. There are many more battles up ahead, such as for the Coalition for TJ, which we're hoping this year can be accepted by the Supreme Court of the United States.
And Suparna, let me ask you this, that you just talked about how you also have an Indian origin. So let's talk about Indian Americans specifically and students who aspire to go to the United States for their higher studies. So according to a Pew survey, close to 60% of Indians in the United States support affirmative action, and they say that it helps for the representation of diversities in United States universities. While on the other side, some say that it only prefers African Americans, while Indian Americans don't really benefit. So what does this mean for Indian Americans really?
I'm not sure, because I have seen different polls the last couple of days, and it seems to me the majority, the latest polls that I saw, I'm not familiar with the Pew poll that you just mentioned, the majority seem to think that, race-based opportunity is not the right thing to do. It violates the Constitution of the United States. It's not right to the person to say that, okay, you worked hard enough, you've proven you can do it, but you're just not the right ethnicity or not the right color. I'm sorry, we just have to give it to somebody else.
But one counterpoint is this, that while, of course, we aim to be gender neutral as a world, and all countries aim to be gender neutral, but we have to face that we are not gender neutral currently, and no, I beg your pardon, we are not race neutral currently, and we cannot ignore the fact that not all ethnicities and races have a similar level playing field. They don't have the same start point, they don't have the same privileges to begin with. That's what Michelle Obama also spoke about. So how can they be judged on the same parameters when they don't start with the same point?
Well, it's interesting, Michelle Obama, only after her husband, Barack Obama, was nominated for the as a Democrat nominee, did she say that she was proud to be an American. She and her husband both grew up in very privileged homes. They had got good good education. They grew up with money, yet they consider themselves as minorities. It's unfortunate that there are people who use race as a cudgel, who some would say are race mongers. It's interesting that they would continue to say something like that. From what my experience is that most Indian Americans do consider affirmative action not the right or the fair thing to do.
Right. Some institutions might now seek other ways in order to make their student population more diverse. If you could take us through some other steps that could be taken in that direction.
Right. And so here's the thing, that we all have diverse points of views, diverse opinions, and diversity should not just be about your race or where you are in life. For example, I grew up in a very humble home in India. My father escaped religious persecution. He was a refugee in India, and he grew up penniless, but he pulled himself out of poverty. How? With the power of education and by his grit and determination. When I came to this country, I borrowed a few dollars from my dad to come here. And because I thought that, as he said, and my mother always said, that education can open pathways like nothing else can. And so I don't wear my life's journey and my experiences on my sleeves. And I think that I don't expect a handout. I think that most Indians in this country don't expect handouts. They want to make their way through their hard work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Suparna Datta, for joining us on the broadcast.